I'm about to show you something extremely controversial. It's even illegal in the state of Israel to obtain this. And if you do obtain it, it's illegal to show it and or talk about it. Ladies and gentlemen, my DNA. Now, I bet you thought it was going to be a lot crazier than that, right? Now, you might ask yourself, why is it illegal to obtain this in the state of Israel? Because it proves through your DNA that Jews around the world have no ancestral ties to the land of Israel. Because it proves through your DNA that Jews around the world have no ancestral ties to the land of Israel.
We Jews have been in the land of Israel since the times of biblical Joshua.
Who is we? No, really, who is we? You live in Israel, so I don't expect you to be able to provide genetic or ancestral receipts for your claims about us Jews, because those kinds of receipts are illegal in Israel without a court order and other special permissions. The Jerusalem Post explains, such a thing cannot exist as kits sold directly to the public, going on to say that they have possible effects on subjects and their families. Furthermore, the national implications of these tests could hold or affect, nice grammar Jerusalem Post, could hold or affect with Israel being a government-recognized Jewish state. Don't you just love when they say the quiet parts out loud? But since they won't let you get receipts for us Jews, I brought my own. Wow. So I, an Ashkenazi, have no genetic or ancestral ties to the region of historic Palestine. I, an Ashkenazi, have no genetic or ancestral ties to the region of historic Palestine. And yet Israel still claims it's my homeland, which I could move to and become a citizen of under the ironically named Law of Return.
Now, having seen the devastation that is going on in Palestine, I came to ask myself, what is the origin of this conflict? And why is it raging on without anybody offering any lasting solution to save the lives that are going to be lost in that part of the world? And one thing that I found out is that Israelis have claimed that this part of land that they settle in today, Palestinians did not have anything to do with it. It was their original ancestral land and they deserve to be there. And that is why they think the Palestinians are living in their own homeland. But then when we look at history, we are finding that this conflict began in the 19th century when the Jewish state was formed in 1947 in the then Ottoman-controlled Palestine. But who are the true Jews? This is a question that has been asked. And as we stand now, there are a lot of Israelis who have done their DNA test to really check to understand their ancestral background. But then when they do this DNA test, what they found out is a little bit shocking. They're realizing that they are not the true Jews that should be claiming this part of the land. I want us to watch these clips where some reactions were given about the same issue that I'm talking about. So let's watch it, then come back and share our thoughts together.
So what is your, this is a question that comes from outside of Israel. What is your opinion about the theory that Ashkenazim came from Khazar?
It seems relevant. It's quite obvious that white Jewish people, Ashkenazim from Europe, are not genetically, as much as I can tell, I'm not an expert, but they don't look the same like Arab Jews, people that came from Arab countries, and Ethiopians. I don't think there's a lot of, there may be some genetic relations, but there's a lot of genetic differences. And any theory that says that we're not genetically come from the same ancestors makes sense to me.
Ashkenaz is one of the Gentile nations. Now, 80 to 85% of today's so-called Jewry, those who claim to be Jews in the world today, 80 to 85% of them are what is known as Ashkenazi Jews. And an Ashkenazi Jew is so named because he primarily descends from this guy in the Bible named Ashkenaz, which is clearly listed as one of the Gentile nations. Now, the reason for this is that there was a nation of people who were Europeans, white people, known as the Khazars. And in the 8th century after Christ, the whole nation of the Khazars turned unto Judaism. They converted to the religion of Judaism. Of course, it was a false, Christ-rejecting religion. And for a few hundred years, the empire of the Khazars was a power in Eastern Europe, and they followed the religion of Judaism. But eventually they were defeated by the Russians, and they were scattered into Eastern Europe. And so a lot of the Eastern European Jews today are the descendants of the Khazars.
And so a lot of the Eastern European Jews today are the descendants of the Khazars.
I was today years old when I found out.
Ashkenaz, the eldest of the 3 sons of Gomer, the son of Japhet, and the name of a kingdom, referencing these same verses. Most likely it was the Scythian kingdom. And then after a few hundred years, they're lost from history. So they have zero to do with Israel, zero to do with Jewish people, zero to do with Ashkenazi Jews today. Zero. You say, well, where did the name Ashkenazi came from? So a little over 1,000 years ago, as Jewish people scattered around the world had now emigrated in Europe and now were living in the Rhineland in Germany, they looked at the name Gomer in Genesis 10, and they connected Gomer with Germany, so they took on the identity of the name Ashkenaz. It has nothing to do with Ashkenaz in the Bible, which is a descendant of Japhet. It's just a name that was taken. Okay, it's that simple. Just like my last name Brown doesn't refer to the color of my skin or anything else. It was shortened from a Russian name when my grandfather came over at Ellis Island. The name got shortened to Brown. It's just a name. That's all it is. So the idea that Ashkenazi Jews are descended from Japhet is a myth, 100% false, zero truth to it. Just study the history, look into it, check the Bible dictionaries, encyclopedias, the archaeological works, you'll find the exact same thing.
Key takeaway points and food for thought. 1. The original Jews are defined as those from the line of Judah. Judah was the 4th son of Jacob. 2. Ashkenaz was the first son of Gomer and is from the line of Japheth and not Shem. 3. They labeled themselves as Ashkenaz but claimed to be from the line of Shem. If they knew their history, would this error have been made? 4. The term Ashkenazi Jew is historically incorrect, as previously mentioned Ashkenaz and Judah are from separate lineages. 5. They self-identified as Ashkenazi and were not labeled as such. Due to the confusion in establishing their true lineage, one could suggest this has been a ploy to hijack the identity of an already established people. 6. It's claimed that the Ashkenazi people have been lost to history. But, are people ever lost to history, or are they invaded, conquered and assimilated?
It was like Christmas morning. I got a 23andMe ancestry and health kit. I think that I kind of want to start with the ancestry side. And it says ancestry composition. I'm 49.9% Ashkenazi Jewish. That's not a huge surprise to me at all, since my mom's side of the family is completely Jewish. My dad's side is not Jewish though. So let's go to there. Let's see what's going on. This is like, I feel really like on the spot. Okay, so I'm 100% European, which again is not a huge surprise to me, but it's just funny seeing it like that. I'm 49% Ashkenazi Jew, totally. British and Irish and German and French, a little bit Scandinavian, Northeastern European. Yeah, it's not super exciting, but I kind of know all of that information. I didn't realize how much of my family was from Germany though, so that's interesting. So let's see if I can get more information on this. It's funny, like I know where like my relatives and stuff came from, but it's kind of fun to see it broken down like this. Yeah, totally not surprising having the British and Irish be pretty strong. The German is though, so I wonder who came from Germany. I wonder if it has to do with the Ashkenazi Jewish part of my family. No really Scandinavian, no Italian. Wow, okay. It's pretty vague. It doesn't give you like, which it makes sense, but there's nothing really random in there. There's a tiny bit of East Asian and Native American, like the slightest. The first thing that they're telling me to do is do the late onset Alzheimer's disease. I do have some dementia in my family, so I wouldn't be super surprised that this was positive, but my heart's racing a little bit. I don't know. So I don't have the whatever, however you say that. So there's zero variants detected, which is, I guess, a positive thing. Cool. So Parkinson's disease. Let's open that guy up. I know that's like a very, so I have 0 variants detected. So age-related macular degeneration, a variant detected, not likely at increased risk. I'm not totally sure what that totally means, but AMD, super familiar with that condition, but we'll see. I'll do more research on this. Have a slightly increased risk of celiac disease, which I've actually been tested by, like, I've gotten blood work and stuff done for celiac disease. And I definitely, gluten is harder for me to digest, but yeah. Interesting.
Let's unravel the mysteries behind Ashkenazi genetics. Ashkenazi Jews are a Jewish diaspora population who formed in the Holy Roman Empire around 1,000 years ago. The total Ashkenazi population is estimated at 10 million people. Today they live mostly in the United States as well as in Israel, where they represent over a third of the Jewish population. They are descended from Levantine Jews who mixed with native Europeans, mostly from southern but also from Eastern Europe. The combination of European and Levantine admixture makes Ashkenazi Jews genetically close to Southern Italians, Sicilians, Greek Islanders, or Maltese people. Using ancestral populations, Ashkenazi Jews can be modeled as being roughly 49% Anatolian Neolithic farmer, 24% steppe, 13% Natufian, and 9% Iranian Neolithic, with minor Caucasian, North African, and East Eurasian contributions. Get your custom DNA report today at world-genetics.com.
The results are in, y'all. And good news, I'm not from the Walmart discount section. First up, we are 50% Jewish. Woo! Yes, I did have a bat mitzvah. Next, we got 26% Indigenous Americas, aka Mexico, aka Aztec warrior. Then we got 14% coming from Spain. Shout out to all those conquistadors. Then 3% Basque. Interesting. This is like the full little map thing they give you. And then I also get to see people I'm related to that I've never even heard about before. Kind of crazy, kind of cool, it's kind of scary.
So you know how in Israel there's a law that bans Israeli Jews from marrying Arabs, Palestinians, Muslims? And they say that this is based on the morale of their holy book, right? But I'm about to show you how this just goes to show that these people don't know the book. And really this law, like about everything else in their regime, is based in white supremacy, racism, and ultimately mid-20th century eugenics. Because the thing is that the most famous and beloved of the Israelites and the Israelite kings, they weren't purebloods. Solomon's mother was a Canaanite. David's grandmother was also a Canaanite, a Moabite to be specific. And a Moabite so famous, she got a whole book in the Bible named after her, the Book of Ruth. What's more is that Ruth and Bathsheba, the mother of Solomon, both of these women were widows. And the widow is the carrier of the greatest secret in alchemy. The Freemasons are going to be pretty pissed about me revealing this. But what we call the Philosopher's Stone is actually the widow's elixir. And the sons of the widow are the real heroes of humanity, which is why a Freemason is otherwise called the son of the widow. Also, hi, I'm Eliane, and I wrote a PhD on political identity in Palestine and Israel. Oh, you thought I was just a little twitchy witch? No, that's Dr. Twitchy Witch to you. I also wrote a master's on alchemy and Jungian dream analysis. I know everything. And I've read all of Abraham's books, cover to cover, and some of them in their original language. I'm not from Israel or Palestine or anywhere else but the earth. I have no ethnicity, believe in no nation, and identify with nothing but humanity. And if you're watching this, then you're probably someone who wants to see a world without borders, just like me. And you're also probably someone who understands that identity politics benefits no one but the capitalists. Because the more identified you are with an age, a gender, a sexuality, a nation, a religion, the easier you are to market to. But the less you identify with, the more you understand that identity is fluid and that you change every single day. That as you watch this video, you're not the same person who watched the last video. Then you're really hard to pin down and categorize. It's really hard to put you in a demographic when you're a shapeshifter. But anyway, back to Ruth, whose book I encourage you to read because it's really short. But basically, Ruth lived with an Israelite woman named Naomi. She got married, her husband died, and eventually when Naomi was sending her and her sister back to her tribe, she decided to stay with with Naomi because she loved her so much. She was like, please, Naomi, let me go with you and worship your God. Naomi approves, takes her back with her to Israel. She marries an Israelite and eventually becomes the grandmother of King David, a man after God's own heart. And then David, who's basically God's favorite ever, he has a whole harem of Israelite wives that he wins in battle and whatnot. He eventually falls in love with a Canaanite woman named Bathsheba. He sees Bathsheba and she is so beautiful, like man's cannot contain himself. So he sleeps with her even though she's married, and he has such a good time, like he cannot forget that. He wants some more, so he basically sends her husband out to battle and conspires to have him killed so that, he can marry her in peace and have her have his babies. But this makes God angry, and he sends one of his prophets to tell David a whole fable with a moral lesson, which I can get into in another video because it's a super cute story. But basically the lesson is that, like, David, you literally have everything. You have a whole harem of wives, and this poor man, Uriah, had the one wife, and you took her away from him. That's so greedy, bro. And for that, I'ma punish you and unalive your first child with Bathsheba, because I know she's pregnant. But David repents, and God forgives him, and he keeps going. Bathsheba has another son, and his name is Solomon. And we all know that Solomon goes on to be like the King of Kings. Solomon is bestowed the honor of building a temple for God, an honor that God did not give to David or anyone before Solomon, and hence the importance of Solomon's temple. The temple built by Hiram Abif, the king of Tyre, who was also a widow's son, who's really the main character in Freemasonry and the Bible's most famous alchemist, and who it is speculated was Solomon's relative. And if the genealogies are correct, and Jesus Christ is really the descendant of Solomon and David, then Yeshua was also a Canaanite. See, because Yahweh says a lot of things throughout the Old Testament that you might think are just absolutely horrid. But even though he has a rep for doing what he says, he doesn't actually follow through on most of the stuff he says he's going to do. Like he repeatedly says throughout the Old Testament that no one is ever going to remember the Canaanites, that the Israelites, they're going to erase them, they're going to eradicate them from the face of the earth, and no one is ever going to hear about them again. And yet here we are, you and I, talking about them. And there goes Yahweh, one book later, picking a Canaanite's descendant to be his favorite king. Bro is a talker, okay? Half the stuff he says, if not more than half, doesn't come to pass. And the modern state of Israel, as we should all know by now, has modeled itself on European colonies, and specifically the French colony, and German tactics for apartheid. Specifically here, that in order for one to maintain a purity of race, which I also don't believe in because it's not scientific, laws need to be implemented to ban intermarriage. But a little bit of critical thinking will show you that if anybody can convert to a religion and then get married, is there any purity of blood being maintained here? Anyway, I think I've rambled enough for now, so come to my live in a few hours. Love you, be free, decategorize yourself.
Now, after watching these videos, I asked myself, what is the true composition of the Jews in Israel as we know it today? And one thing that I found is that there is no single group of Jews that dominate the current state of Israel, because the Jewish population in Israel remains diverse with various religions and cultural backgrounds. However, Ashkenazi Jews who have the European descent make up the majority of the population. It is important to note that Ashkenazi Jews are the largest group. There is no single group that holds exclusive power or dominance in Israel. The country has a complex political system and multiple parties representing different interests and ideologies. So that is all I've found out about what the composition is. And then we find that if the majority of Israelis or the Jews in Israel are Ashkenazi Jews, then how is it that they can lay claim to Israel as it is today? Let's have a little bit of history on this. The Ashkenazi Jews, one of the major Jewish ethnic divisions, have a complex and debated ancestry that combine Middle Eastern part and European origins. Their name Ashkenazi is derived from medieval Hebrew term. However, the true ancestral origin of Ashkenazi Jews trace back much further. Like all Jewish groups, the roots of Ashkenazi Jews can be traced back to the ancient Israel at the Levant, particularly the biblical kingdoms of Israel and Judah. Genetic studies show that Ashkenazi Jews share significant genetic overlap with other Jewish populations, such as the Sephardic and Masoretic Jews, as well as with people from Levant, including Palestinians and Druze. This Middle Eastern genetic component suggests that their ancestors were part of the Jewish populations that were exiled from the region following events such as the Babylonian exile of 16th century and the Roman destruction of the Second Temple. So, first of all, there is no one denying that they are Jews. However, are they 100% Jews? Because when we look at them, there are certain things that we must really look at in context. For example, what does their current genetic makeup reveal about themselves? We know that after the Babylonian exile, they went to other parts of the world. Some of them lived in Rome, some of them lived in Europe. And we find that this really affected who they are totally. So when we talk about Ashkenazi Jews, there is a high percentage of genetic makeup that really links them back to Europe. And this makes them not exclusively 100% Jews. And from what we have read behind there, we are finding out that they also share some aspect of genetic makeup with Palestinians. And therefore, when somebody comes to say that this land is ours and you do not deserve to be here, when our genetic makeup links us together, that really is a division that I think must be eliminated as early as possible. Because we are finding out that these people, they have common ancestral backgrounds and their genetic makeup is linking them up together. So there is no need of somebody coming out to say that one population is superior to the other and that the other person should not really get a chance to live in this place because they are looked at or they are judged to be different from others. When we look at genetic makeup, we are finding out that these people, they could be having equal stakes because only a portion of their genetic makeup gives them the identity to be called Jews. And this is also same to some of the Palestinians. During their time in Europe, Ashkenazi Jews experienced intermarriages and conversions, resulting in a degree of European genetic admixture. Genetic studies reveal that Ashkenazi Jews have around 50% Middle Eastern ancestry and 50% European ancestry, the latter primarily from Southern Europe. This mixture likely occurred during the early history in the Roman Empire when Jewish communities interacted with local populations. However, once the Ashkenazi Jewish communities solidified their identities, they became highly endogamous, limiting further admixtures. So from this, you are able to see that 50% of their genetic makeup is European. So when they come to tell you that Palestinians who also have a certain percentage of their genetic makeup linking to Jewish, why is it that they think they are more superior to others? And then we are also told that the Ashkenazi Jews are the leading population of the Jewish community in Israel. And therefore, when we look at them, we are able to see that those who live in Israel as it is today are not 100% true Jews, but they have some aspect of Europeans. So we are finding out that these people are coming out to accuse others of not being Jews, yet they themselves have a certain percentage of their genetic makeup linking them to other parts of the world. Who is right here? Over centuries, Ashkenazi Jews migrated to Eastern Europe, particularly Poland, Lithuania, and Russia, where they became a significant Jewish population. The Ashkenazi Jews originate from the blend of Middle Eastern and European ancestry, which was shaped by historical migrations, interactions, and endogamous practices. Their genetic and cultural identity reflect both their ancient heritage and their historical journey through Europe. So, with the high percentage of Israelis being Ashkenazi Jews, we are able to see that these people who are thinking that they should wage a war against Palestinians are not truly pure and 100% Jewish. They could at some point be holding same genetic makeup with some Palestinians that they are fighting. And therefore, we are one community. I believe that we must come together and be united in purpose. Because when we look at the war that is currently raging in that part of the world, it's creating a division and an enmity that should not really exist. We are one people, and Palestinians and Israelis should come together and find a lasting solution to this issue, because no one can really lay claim to that part of the world exclusively, because when they left, They mixed with others, and those who are there also have some genetic makeup that makes them have some Jewish characteristics. Tell me down in the comment section what you think about this. And if you're watching us for the first time, don't forget to subscribe to our channel, like this video, and also share. Thank you, and may the good Lord bless you. Goodbye.